thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allow me to recognize in our presence our political leader of the People's National Movement and Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Our political leader and leader of Tobago Affairs, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine. The chairman of the Tobago Council, Mr. Stanford Callender. Our Chief Secretary, Mr. Ansel Dennis, members of the party's executive, officers of this great party, members, friends, and supporters of the PNM family, members of the media, fellow citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, a hearty good evening. It is indeed a pleasure and a distinct privilege for me to stand before you this evening as we continue our national development journey and our crusade for a more prosperous future for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I am Shamfa Cudjoe, your candidate for the Tobago West seat. Your voice, your servant leader, and last but not least, a PNM standard bearer. This year, like every other year, this election, like every other election, the People's National Movement is proud to contest every single seat in every constituency. And as simple as that seems, brothers and sisters, there is no other party in this country that can boast about that. So put your hands together for the People's National Movement. We are not a political party in the narrow sense of the word, but rather we are a rally for all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, coming together, working hand in hand for the common good, one common goal, and the realization of a common vision. Whether you like our party or not, whether you support us or not, it is undisputed that the PNM has and always will stand in the gap for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We are a national party, catering to every section of the electorate and our society, dedicated to improving the lives for not just some, but for all of us, all our citizens, despite color, creed, race, financial background, or geographical location. And that, brothers and sisters, is the essence of the People's National Movement. Our Chief Secretary would have mentioned when we came into power in 2015, we came to you seeking your support, seeking your hand in partnership, asking you to join us on a journey. We asked you to believe, and we asked you to let's do this together. We asked you to believe because we know we were coming on the heels of the most oppressive and atrocious government in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, and that would call for hope, confidence, courage, and hope to bring us out of the dark doldrums of despair that we had found ourselves in. We asked you to work with us, to let's do this together, because we understood the enormity of the task and that it would take everybody, all hands on deck, to restore order, to regain honor, and to create a brighter future for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So we assumed office in 2015. Institutions denigrated, public servants emasculated, the stench of corruption reeked from every nook and cranny of this country. We were a lawless state. Some people called Trinidad and Tobago ground zero, but I think we can safely say that we were at our all-time low, with state enterprises deep in debt. We were owing loans left, right, and center. Our opponents looked on, and some of them were hoping and expecting us to fail, hoping that we would end up like Barbados in the hand of the IMF. When Mia Mottley assumed duties as Prime Minister of Barbados, she had to send home thousands of public servants. She had to stop a number of social programs, and she found herself under IMF Structural Adjustment Program, brothers and sisters. We did not have to suffer the same fate because of intelligent leadership and prudent management from our Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. We could have chosen to kick the can down the road and continue the spending and the feeding frenzy. But we decided to readjust our lifestyle and to give ourselves our own medicines and to deal with strengthening our economy so that we can maintain a proper standard of living for the people of our country, more specifically the young people and the little children. These kinds of circumstances call for intelligent leadership, Patience, sobriety, experience, integrity, dexterity, selflessness, and dedication. That called for a leader that stood up for what is right, and we found that in Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. So as a government, we made the hard decisions. We took the unpopular and harsh actions. We started by cutting back Christmas parties, unnecessary travel. We reviewed and revised the social programs, making sure that help got into the hands of those who needed it most. We put an end to different state entities and operations that no longer benefited the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Then that was compounded with very low energy prices, and then came COVID. For many of us, these years had been some of our most trying years. It had been some rough years, but we had to do what we had to do for the sustenance of our people, and most importantly, for the welfare of our youth. The media bashed us. Naysayers trampled on us, and some of our very own left us. But this is the sacrifice we have to make each and every day to achieve a stable economy, to maintain a decent standard of living for all our citizens. We fought tooth and nail to keep us out of the hands of the IMF. We bend over backwards to ensure that we continue to have education and social assistance going. We kept public servants employed, and we kept ourselves out of the hand, our country out of the hand of the IMF. There were many months we struggled with keeping the ship of state sailing and ensuring that our bills were paid. But thank God for the prudent leadership of Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. We got it done, and we have prevailed. And then came COVID that brought the entire world to its knees, and we stood tall because of sound leadership, and we continue to prevail. And even against the backdrop of our most trying financial and fiscal circumstances, we persevered with an ambitious development agenda and a compassionate, comprehensive social assistance system, always protecting the needy from the greedy, always protecting the weak from being trampled by the strong, always being a bastion of hope and strong tower for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, always being that fearless voice for the people of this nation. We remain focused. So despite the warnings of the multinational financial institution, we kept public servants employed, kept social assistance going, supported private sector development, invested in human capital development, GATE, OJT, CPEP, URP, old age pension, public assistance grant, home improvement and refurbishment, incentives to tourism stakeholders and agricultural business people. We were there, standing in the gap for you, providing the necessary assistance. We kept the ship of state sailing. We did not cut. A matter of fact, we expanded, and that is what this government is all about, and we defend that. You know, when I listen to the opposition, they often say, and especially on social media, we shouldn't mention these accomplishments because this is what a government should do. That's your duty, and you're doing us no favor or giving us no luxury because you're using the taxpayer dollar. I smile. Then I calmly suggest that a major part of delivering on those duties is sound leadership, political will, and the decency to decide who received help and who didn't, where would development take place, and who had to wait and wait and wait, whether Tobagonians would suffer or whether the advancement of our development agenda would proceed. That takes political will. That takes wisdom in identifying priority and compassion in making a choice. The opposition forces had the chance to lead. They enjoyed the biggest budgets of that our country would have ever seen. And in making their choices, they exercised their power. Many of them like to pretend that they have forgotten, but we are here, brothers and sisters, to tell them how much we remember. They had the chance to expand the airport and to do the airport project, and they cordoned off the airport and didn't do any work there for 5 years and 4 months. They had the choice to open up the tourism accommodation upgrade program to Tobago stakeholders. Instead, they left it accessible to the Trinidadian hoteliers only. It took Shamfa Cudjoe in December of 2015 speaking up at the cabinet, taken a note to Cabinet to have that program open and available to Tobago stakeholders. We expanded the government loan guaranteed program. They could have done that for Tobagonians, but they left us out. And it is the People's National Movement that had to do that. They had the choice, brothers and sisters, to bring relief to us as it relates to the land title and registration of deeds matter. Can you remember a committee headed by Vanilla Allen Toppin? They met sluggishly for 5 years, and at the end of it all, they presented to the people of Mason Hall empty, blank, not black, I say blank, papers to the people of Tobago. They highlighted Tobago East as an economic zone, as a growth zone, and did nothing, absolutely nothing. Now it's up to Ayanna Webster Roy to speak up for Tobago East and to get development and projects done in Tobago East. Instead of buying a new ferry or properly maintaining the one we had, they kept the old ferry limping along, poorly maintained. That is, they had taxpayers' dollars at that time and the biggest budget in the history of our country. They complained that Tobago's tourism was left behind, but did little or nothing to properly market the destination. They said development was slow, and as Tobago asked year after year for the ability to borrow, the answer for Tobago was no. They cut us off from receiving national self-help grants in 2013. After they lost the election in January 2013, Tobagonians were cut off from the national self-help grant. It took this same mouth and this same voice at the level of the cabinet to speak to have national self-help reintroduced to Tobagonians. So they lacked compassion, and they lacked care for Tobago, and they certainly did not have the political will to come through for us. 5 years, 4 months, and the biggest budget in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. What can the UNC show you, Tobagonians, for their time? What can UNC and their minions here in Tobago show you for the partnership that they would have shared? We, 5 years later, the People's National Movement, against a trying economic situation, still found it fit to invest in Tobago wholeheartedly. We can boast about delivery, performance, and robust development. That is what we did because we had the political will, and we chose to invest in Tobago deliberately and elaborately. And as my mother would say, who don't like it, sit beside it. PNM is on a roll, and we chose to develop Tobago. It is this same mouth that talked so much that had to sit at the cabinet table to speak for the expansion of the ANR airport here in Tobago. That project had been on the books for 30 years, and nobody found the money. It took the People's National Movement and Ayanna Webster Roy and Shamfa Cudjoe speaking for the people of Tobago. Spanking new ferries are on the way. You have the land title situation being resolved. We would have already passed the legislation, purchased the software, and the digitalization of deeds and the implementation of that program is taking place right now as we speak. It is this same mouth and this same voice at the level of the cabinet that would have spoken so that we can have the expansion of our electrical capacity at Cove. It is this same mouth and this same voice that sat at the table of the cabinet and lobbied for the Southwest Wastewater Project. We commissioned that project within 2 weeks. It is this same mouth and this same voice that sat on the table of the cabinet and ensured that the Dwight York Stadium, which would have been left dilapidated for over 10 years, to be refurbishment, a full refurbishment, the self-help program, opening up the top to Tobago, the government loans guarantee program, and access to agricultural grants that farmers in Tobago did not have access to before Ayanna Webster Roy and Shamfa Cudjoe sat at that cabinet and used the same mouth and the same voice to speak up on behalf of the people of Tobago. So representation for Tobago on the cabinet table, that is where decisions are made. It's not simply about sending you to Parliament. We had to speak up to accomplish these things. It is the same way we have spoken up over the years to provide support to youth groups in our communities so that they can run their sporting programs, to speak up for social assistance for our constituents, to speak up for women who year after year bring their book list to our constituency office. We had to find sponsors for them so that they can get their children through school. We solicit support to provide food food and hampers to the people of our constituency to help athletes. I want to take you to human capital development because we as MPs, we sit and we have resume writing sessions with constituents, business development proposals, this same mouth and this same voice been speaking up for the people of Tobago, the young people of Trinidad and Tobago, through the establishment of the 40 Under 40 program, where we take stakeholders and entrepreneurs from school to show young people that it's not just about getting 5 CXC subject, but about channeling your energies and your education to doing what you love and making money out of your skill. We have the LEAP program that speaks to personal and professional development of young people, getting them ready for the working world. We have graduated over 525 graduates from that program. We have the AIM program, which we brought to Tobago, where we had young people doing internship and learning how to establish their own businesses, how to build websites, how to market their businesses, how to do accounting for their businesses. What more? What more? It's the same mouth that would have lobbied for these things. And the list goes on, but my time is limited. The PNM is on a roll, and we remain deliberate and elaborate in building Tobago. We remain deaf to the cries of the UNC that $1.2 billion is too much to spend on an airport for Tobago. We remain deaf to the cries of the naysayers that say we don't deserve 2 spanking new, specially built, world-class ferries. We remain deaf to the cries of the UNC that said giving tourism and agri-grants during the COVID period is a waste of taxpayers' money for Tobago. Where were the Spartans and the PDP and their voices when these things were happening? Where were those voices when Sat Miraj was denigrating Tobagonians, calling us rapists and calling us unproductive? Where were these same voices when Suraj Rambachan sat in the parliament and called Tobagonians lazy? We ignore the naysayers and the tongue criers. We keep pressing on so that Tobago will get its fair share and move closer and closer to parity, and even in some areas to boast of superiority. That's our track record, and we will defend it. What does the UNC have to show? What does the PDP have to show? Brothers and sisters, this is a time for choosing. This is a time for discernment and wisdom. This is a time for choosing. And you have to be able to tell the difference between a jack and a king. One side is telling you, check our track record. The other one is telling you, just send us to Parliament. Send us to Parliament to do what? To form the government with whom? Because you can talk and talk and talk in Parliament, but in order to get things done, you have to be a part of the government, and all the speakers before me would have said that. Pounding to galvanize is not development or delivery. Giving the boys on the block money to buy drinks and cook pork and dumpling is not the way to improve, would not improve their lot, and that is not service. Screaming through the airwaves and roughing up the people when you meet them in the street is not representation. Begging for a chance with no plan, no direction, that is not leadership with distinction. And simply participating in a debate is not considered getting the job done. We have talked. Ayana Webster Roy in the east and Shamfa Cudjoe in the west. We have talked the talk and we have walked the walk. We cannot say the same about them. So that leaves you with the PDP and the UNC. And I wonder which Tobagonian among us would settle for, would sit and watch us waltz back into the hands of Kamala. Not one of us. Not one of us. They have been trying to sell us. They have been telling us increasingly that we have to make a decision choosing between left and right. And I'm here to tell you, brothers and sisters, it is bigger and deeper than that. It is not about left and right, it's about up and down. Whether we're going forward or backward, whether we choose wisdom or ignorance, whether we choose light or darkness. Our history would have told us that there is no future for us, no good thing when Tobago, any so-called Tobago party joins with the UNC. That if that partnership made sense, the DAC would still be standing. If that kind of arrangement was to our benefit, the NAR would still be standing. If that type of partnership was beneficial to the Tobagonian, the Tobago Forwards would still be standing. If that type of relationship was beneficial to us as Tobagonians, the TOP would still be standing. They said that they are going to give us internal self-government. If that were true, Over the years, when they've made that arrangement, by now we would have been the independent Democratic Republic of Tobago. They said send them to Parliament, the allocation would increase. They came back with nothing, precious nothing. They told us we'll get our airport. They came back with nothing, precious nothing. University of Tobago, nothing, precious nothing. They'll increase autonomy, nothing, precious nothing. They'll help us with the registration of deed and fixed inter-island transport, nothing. They came back with nothing, precious nothing. They sat at their tables and they ate their food. Their mouths were too full to speak up for us. Their hands were tied by their UNC puppet masters, and they were too busy building pumpkin houses. Brothers and sisters, I want you to let them know that we remember. So to see Vanilla Allen Topping and Delmon Baker show up at the PDP launch, Stone Pussy dressed in their black, ready to support Watson Duke, that is a slap in the face to Tobagonians. And then to learn that the main reason why Watson Duke PDP and Chrislyn Moore, Ho-Choi Charles and Ashworth Jack OTV are not facing the polls as one big united trappy UNC family is because Chrislyn Moore made out Watson Duke to be a psychopathic liar. Despite how much you tell us about the benefits of a Tobago party, those of you who have traded our dignity for personal aggrandizement and political expediency, you have embarked on a dangerous course, a downward spiral, and we are not prepared to endorse that or to go there with you. Brothers and sisters, as I close, if we allow ourselves to be tricked into getting in bed with Kamala and the UNC once again, history will record this mistake with tremendous astonishment. We will live to regret, and we will not be forgiven by our children. Tobagonians, you deserve better. Tobagonians, you know better. Tobagonians, you're too smart to encourage this tomfoolery. Tobagonians, this is an assault, a brutal assault to your dignity. Tobagonians, this is a bold-faced insult to your intelligence and your decency. This time calls for intelligent, inspiring, sober and sane leadership. Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, right man, right time. Ayanna Webster Roy in the east. Shamfa Ashaki Cudjoe in the west. And when we speak out like this, they send their trolls for us on social media. I want to tell Mr. Ragbeer, Mr. Maraj, and Mr. Sigobin, I don't need no encouragement, and you don't intimidate me. We, the people of Tobago, will defend Tobago and Tobagonians by any means necessary, so send your trolls. Send your trolls and come. Bait me on social media. Call out your trolls. On August 10th, we will beat you at the polls. 22 more days, red and ready. 41 strong candidates, red and ready. Solid, sober and sane, red and ready. Stay in our own lane, we red and ready. PNM outside, we red and ready. Tell PDP try, we red and ready. Red Army outside, we red and ready. Tell the UNC to hide, we red and ready. Still out and bad, we red and ready. Man in our own yard, we red and ready. Let your finger be your voice, we red and ready. On August 10th, we're making the right choice. We are red and ready. And at the end of the day, when we count our votes, we would stand here and we raise our hands together and sing, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail. I thank you.